The 49ers just beat the Rams 30-23. Here are the 49ers grades for this victory. Brock Purdy, B. He managed the game, as opposed to Matthew Stafford, who threw 2 picks, which were the difference in the outcome. Purdy didn't turn the ball over at all, even though he fumbled it once, and still led the 49ers to 30 points, which is impressive. But for the first regular season game in his career, he threw 0 touchdown passes, plus he missed 3 wide open deep passes that he should have completed. 1 to Brandon Ayuk, 1 to Deebo Samuel, and 1 to Juwan Jennings. As the game went on, the passes Kyle Shanahan called for Brock Purdy became shorter and shorter. It seemed like Shanahan was losing confidence in Purdy the way he used to lose confidence in Jimmy Garoppolo. Because those two quarterbacks have one thing in common. Neither has a good deep ball. Both essentially are limited to 20-yard throws downfield. Eventually, the Niners will need a quarterback who can throw farther than 20 yards. Today was not that day because the Rams are not that good. Running backs. A. Christian McCaffrey rushed 20 times for 116 yards and 1 touchdown. He also had a beautiful 51-yard run around the left end, plus 3 catches for 19 yards. If he stays healthy, he could be the offensive player of the year. But the 49ers will get him injured if they keep giving him 23 touches per game. They have to find another running back they trust to close out games. Why don't they trust Elijah Mitchell or Jordan Mason anymore? And why is Ty Davis Price on the team? He was inactive today. The Niners drafted him in the 3rd round. What a mistake. Wide receivers. B+. Deebo Samuel had 6 catches for 63 yards. Juwan Jennings had 2 catches for 51 yards. And Brandon Ayuk had 3 catches for 43 yards despite injuring his shoulder on his first catch of the game. And all 3 should have had 1 more long catch each, but Purdy overthrew them. Tight ends. C. George Kittle had a typical George Kittle game. 3 catches, 30 yards, and a few nice blocks. He has slowed down considerably the past few seasons. Offensive linemen. B+. They neutralized Aaron Donald, which they seem to do every time they face him, and the left side dominated in the run game. But the right side of the offensive line continued to struggle. Right guard Spencer Burford can't move anyone, and right tackle Colt McKivitz can't move. Defensive linemen. C. They generated pressure, but no sacks, which is why Matthew Stafford played so well in the first half. In the second half, the Niners had to blitz and bring extra rushers to pressure Stafford, which worked, but that's not what the Niners are built to do. They spend big money on their defensive linemen specifically so they don't have to blitz. But Nick Bosa has 0 sacks through 2 games after holding out all season. They'll need him to show up eventually. Linebackers. B. Dre Greenlaw committed his weekly 15-yard penalty, which was not so good, but led the Niners with 12 tackles. Fred Warner had 11 tackles and 1 sack. He was the 49ers' most effective pass rusher today. Defensive backs. B+. Ambry Thomas started again and was so awful that he got benched for the 2nd game in a row. Fellow starter Trevarius Ward played soft zone coverage all game and gave up lots of short catches. He was nothing special. Fortunately for this group, Isaiah Oliver intercepted a pass that tipped off the Rams running back, and Diamador Lenore jumped a route to intercept a 2nd pass. These 2 turnovers were the difference in the game. Special teams. A-. Jake Moody made all 3 of his field goal attempts and all 3 of his extra points, but also shanked a kickoff out of bounds. Coaches. A-. Kyle Shanahan's offense is as good as it ever has been on the 49ers. He just needs a quarterback who can hit the occasional deep pass, and the Niners would score 40 every week. Today, they would have scored 44 points if Purdy could have hit a couple wide open deep shots. Credit to Shanahan for scheming those receivers so wide open and calling those shots at the right time against the right coverages. He can't throw the ball too. On defense, Steve Wilkes' game plan was much too conservative. He called 4-man rushes and soft zone coverages all first half and gave up 17 points in 2 quarters. Then he made halftime adjustments, started blitzing and calling more man-to-man coverages, and suddenly the 49ers gave up just 6 points while intercepting 2 passes in the second half. Excellent adjustments by Wilkes. Eventually, he and Shanahan will need their players to execute better, but it's still extremely early in the season. The Niners are 2-0, and they haven't come close to playing their best football yet. Scary.